District Attorney Sandra, Doorley, Sheriff Todd Baxter. My name is Chris Chichester. I was evicted from my residence at 26 Sanders Farm Drive in Penfield for 8 years by my father-son landlords, Giuseppe Spano and Anthony Spano, because of you. I've been in jail 6 times. 6 times the prosecutor's not talked in court. And you, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, refused to identify my prosecutor's silence. And I'm going to use the Freedom of Information Law dated today, September 29, 2022, that you have already received registered mail return receipt in the last 10 days 4 times, and you refused to disclose the names of my prosecutor's silence. So as I was evicted from my residence, I own nothing now. And I'm staying at a temporary residence, and I hope to get my life together. I'm going to show you the consequences of an illegal eviction by holding up photographs on my phone of things I no longer have, that I will never have again in my life. There are things in your homes, Sheriff Baxter and District Attorney Doorley, that remind you of your life. And as I'm a runner, when I would run a race, I would take the jersey and I would hang it on the chandelier in my living room. I'd run a race and then I'd put the singlet up there, run a race, put the singlet up there. And I've been doing this since high school, since I've been a runner since the 7th grade. So I'm going to show you my chandelier. That's it right there. And this would fill me up with joy and happiness. And the red one is a race I ran at the University of Rochester. That was my first race in 30 years, and the red one's my favorite. And I was 7th place in 22 minutes and 10 seconds, and I beat guys half my age, and it was just a terrific day. There's the blue one, the gray one, the white one. So I no longer have my jerseys, and this is me. That's me, my first race in 30 years. At the University of Rochester, I stood to the right of the starting line, and I looked to my left, and I looked over like this because I've been doing this since high school. I always go to the right, and when I look to my left, I see a head right here, and I look down, and I know right away this is a boy who's not even in high school. And I thought, well, this is really terrific because this is what I used to do. I used to get up right at the front. And I used to tell my mother, I'm going to get up right at the front, Mom. I'm going to be right with the adults. I'm not staying in the back with these 300 people. I'm going to be right on the front line. And when I looked at this boy next to me, my first race in 30 years, which is what this is from, I'm trying not to be a narcissist. I'm going to get to the point of what I want to tell you about. But this is because of my illegal eviction. That uniform, I no longer have this. That red jersey, those red, white, and blue shorts. I no longer have that uniform. I no longer have any of those jerseys on the chain with the illegal eviction. But on this day of joy, I stood next to this boy, and I looked down, and he had such a look of happiness on his face. So the starter was right in front of me with the gun, a real gun. That's old-fashioned too. And the gun goes off, and this boy went right to the lead. And I'm thinking, this boy is not beating me. So I was in about 30th place at the quarter-mile mark, and I could see this boy. And I'm thinking, this boy's not beating me. Runners do these odd things, and athletes in general try to motivate themselves. And I can see this boy at about the mile mark, and I'm trying to run down this boy whose age I do not know yet. I'm going to find out after the race how old he is. Well, anyway, I was in about 30th place. So I'm trying to run down and chase down this boy who was ahead of me. I was motivated in this race, my first race in 30 years. And I finished in 7th place, and I think it was 22 minutes and 10 seconds at about 500 runners. And I ran well that day. I won my age group, and this boy won the race. This 12-year-old boy at the starting line ran away from everyone. He ran 19 minutes, just a tremendous effort. And this is such a day that only I'll know about. And I'm going to try not to engage in any narcissism on the phone, but this is what I don't have because of an illegal eviction by my psychopath landlord, Giuseppe Spano and Anthony Spano. And when I write the criminal complaint about what these disgusting, repulsive, evil, vile human beings have done to me, you will not arrest Giuseppe Spano and Anthony Spano. Todd Baxter, Sandra Doorley. This is me in Penfield High School. And I did not know, very close to Penfield High School is the Penfield Public Library and courts down the hall from the library. And I don't have that uniform either. That blue top there, those red, white, and blue shorts, that's gone. Two. This is me at Cobbs Hill Park. Tremendous day. I was 10th in this race. It's on the hills. I no longer have that outfit. And this is me in Fairport Brewing Company. I was 15th this day. I ran 23 minutes to 20 seconds, I think it was. I ran right along the Erie Canal, went over the lift bridge. Just a tremendous day. I don't that light blue top that I bought at Target. I don't have that anymore. This is my illegal eviction. This is me again. That's at Cobbs Hill Park. I love that. Right, red, white, and blue shorts. I saw these red, white, and blue shorts. I thought that is so me. Because colors, where I went to high school in Long Island, we had red, white, and blue uniforms at certain points. And I emailed my friends after this race. I said, you wouldn't believe these shorts that I ran this race in. So I no longer have that white jersey. I no longer have those shorts. And those running shoes, I no longer have those running shoes. Those are Nike running shoes that I bought that fit perfectly to run most of my races in. That's gone. All this is gone because of my illegal eviction. Every one of these outfits that I wore, my racing shoes are gone. And everything I own is gone because of Giuseppe Spano and Anthony Spano. Now, Todd Baxter, you party-switching degenerate psychopath. I'm going to tell you why I was arrested, because of Shannon Meyer. And I'm going to show you a parking lot. Now, what I'm going to show you, and I'm going to be looking for photos on here. I may pause for 2 or 3 seconds if you indulge me. This is what I'm going to tell you, United States Department of Justice. This is the sick lunatic fringe. When I tell you about the sick lunatic fringe, Sheriff Todd Baxter and Shannon Meyer, and their $67,000 salary, it won't matter to you. It won't matter to Corey Brown. It won't matter to any of your employees, because this is the Blue Wolf silence. When I'm telling you about the corruption of Shannon Meyer and the fanaticism of this degenerate, who I absolutely despise and detest with every fiber of my being, you will not fire $67,000 Shannon Meyer. This is parking lot. Sheriff Todd Baxter. And you better goddamn well answer me, you skinhead, party-switching, stooge, and criminal. How's it a crime to walk through that parking lot? I'm not asking rhetorically. How's that a crime? When I contact the United States Department of Justice and I tell Attorney General Maricon and his employees to contact you and have you explain how it's a crime to walk through this parking lot, what are you going to say? Are you going to say that it is a crime and try to explain it, or are you going to admit that it is not a crime to walk through this parking lot? Sheriff Todd Baxter. Is it a crime to walk through this parking lot? District Attorney Sandra Doorley, is it a crime to walk through this parking lot? The answer from you has to be yes. Even though that's a sick lunatic fringe. It has to be yes for you. Because there was a warrant for my arrest by $67,000 Shannon Meyer, you not fire, for walking through this parking lot. Look at that. You skinhead stooge and party switcher. Look at that parking lot, Todd Baxter, and what's next to it at 2025 Penview Road for a 2-story building called Consumer Insights. What did you put on that building? I've already seen the images. You can't lie about it, even though you will lie about it. It's a surveillance device. It's a camera. It's my public defender, Regina Harper, showing the images. Todd Baxter and Ellie Roth, who works at this building. Did you place that camera, also called a surveillance device, the sick lunatic fringe, on that building for me and walking through this parking lot when Nayron Shah went to your office, or was it already existing technology? What's the answer, Todd Baxter? And what you're thinking about it is how to lie about it. I've seen the images. They've been emailed to me by Regina Harper. And the first image of me when I walk outside here and tell Steve Desmond a Broccola tree in lawn care, nobody owns that land, and walk back to my residence. How's that a crime? This is the sequence of events that leads to me being in handcuffs by 6 of you fellow psychopaths in my front lawn. Tell me how this is a crime, Todd Baxter. Your employees, you degenerate, do not understand what it's a criminal act. I'm walking through this parking lot for the 4,000th time. I get to the back over here. I'm going to hold this up so you can see what you've done to me. And it's not going to matter. Nayron Shah, 50-year-old man who lives with his mother, is in his vehicle at the back of the parking lot. He starts to scream at me. I have this confrontation with him. I tell him people walk through this parking lot every day. As I turn around and walk away, he's still screaming at me. I give him the official finger of Brooklyn, New York, that I'm also giving to you, Sheriff Todd Baxter and District Attorney Sandra Doorley. And I tell him to fuck off, which is in Shannon Meyer's warrant for my arrest. Do you use profanity at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office? Because the last time I checked, cops use profanity. So anyway, Todd Baxter, tell me how this is a crime. Steve Desmond of Broccola Tree Lawn Care rides his tractor alongside here. I come outside. I stand right here. Right there. I say, nobody owns that land. I walk back into my residence. Sheriff Todd K. Baxter of Monroe County, New York. How is that a crime? That's not a crime. You're going to have to declare to me and the partner that is a crime. Because Shannon Meyer runs into my backyard 30 minutes later, falls down on her face. It's a pounding. Your fellow psychopaths are pounding on my door. I open the door. I walk around onto the front lawn and the handcuffs go on. That's not a crime. I'm not guilty of criminal contempt just to walk out here, tell Steve Desmond, Brock Tree, and Lone Canyon nobody owns the land and walk back to my residence. That's not a crime, Todd Baxter. You're going to have to say it's a crime. And as far as the warrant for my arrest for walking through a parking lot, it says on the document, walking through the parking lot when he's told by police that he's not allowed on the property. The property is a parking lot. Is that right? What do you see right there? Those are two of my neighbors right there. I have photograph after photograph, 50 photographs that I could show on you. Photograph after photograph of people walking through this parking lot. You can see them right there. They're right there. Were they arrested? The answer is no. Where's my 14th Amendment right to equal protection of laws? It's been obliterated by you, Todd Baxter. This is the lunatic fringe. This is your $67,000 site for Shannon Meyer. My excellent friend Adam lives in the residence attached to me. He walks through this parking lot. The elderly woman across the street from me, where I talk all the time, we talk about her dogs, and I'm going to get to my dog. She walks through this parking lot. There's a parade of individuals walking through this parking lot every day, which I told $67,000 Shannon Meyer. So I'm going to show it to you again. How is it a crime to walk through that parking lot? Sheriff Todd Baxter. Activate that blue wall silence. So. And when I use the phrase surveillance device, I'm using this phrase. When I saw the first image of me, I walk outside, I stand in 26 Sanders Farm Drive, I say, nobody owns the land, walk back on Red. When I was taken to the Monroe County Jail and held overnight, I'm handcuffed inside a small room. And your Monroe County Sheriff Office employee came to me, and on his phone is the video image of me outside telling this Steve Desmond nobody owns the land next to the residence. That's how I know my right arm was moving. It's on his phone. Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, a video image of me outside telling Steve Desmond of Brock Tree and Lawn Care nobody owns the land next to my residence. What's that, Sheriff Todd Baxter? What is it? What's that called? And when I state the lunatic fringe, it's your lunatic fringe. That's it right there. That's a camera, also called a surveillance device. And what you did, you party-switching, narcissistic, criminal, and degenerate, you know, and so does Michael Radler and your other employees like Kathleen Miller. You know that you can humiliate me when I use the phrase surveillance device, because there are individuals who are truly mentally ill who believe they're under surveillance by the government or other entities, and they're not. I've seen the images. That's your camera, or is it your camera, or does it belong to Consumer Insights? So what happens? I've seen the image on your phone. I'm using the phrase surveillance because I want to know how much you paid for it. I'm just assuming that's your camera. And I cannot find out from Elliot Roth, who works in this building, if that's private technology. And then if you're using private technology to nail me to the wall with concocted crime. So I'm using this phrase surveillance device, and I finished my run one day. And I walk down Sanders Farm Drive, and I see Lindsay Barron from the Monroe County Office of Mental Health walk across my front lawn with a Monroe County Sheriff Office employee. And I think, I don't want any part of this, so I'm going to continue to run. So I do continue to run down Willow Pond Way toward Wegmans. And Lindsay Barron, the Monroe County Office of Mental Health, sees me. She gets in the Monroe County Sheriff Office vehicle. And as she's driving down Willow Pond Way, screaming from the vehicle, Chris, I want to talk to you about the surveillance device, over and over. And I finally stopped. And she gets out of the vehicle. I said, we're not having any conversation. I refused to talk to her. I said, they bought a camera. They put it to that building. It's called a surveillance device. I've seen the images. I have to explain anything to you. And I continued to run, and she left me alone. Because she could see how angry I was. And when I'm on here, I have to control my anger. Because I'm not an angry human being. I've never been that way. And anybody in my life would confirm that. But when I think about you, Sheriff Todd Baxter, when I think about you, Sandra Doorley, you, Paul C. Metzer, and James C. Mullen Jr., and John P. Mendes Jr., I have to control myself as an innocent man. I have never committed a crime. And on my 50th birthday, July 4th, 2015, I had 2 speeding tickets in Albany, New York, and Washington, D.C. that were dismissed. What do you think that says about my life? It says I've always known what constitutes a criminal act. You don't. You do not know how to define a criminal act, Sheriff Todd Baxter, and neither do your employees. Like $85,000 Don Benedetto, who chases me up onto my back porch with another psychopath named Houlihan after they hit on the private property of my neighbor. I'm not going to talk about that now, because I've talked about that previously, but I will be on YouTube in the next 7 days only about Benedetto and Houlihan. What's that called, Todd Baxter, on that building at 25 Penfield Road? What's it called that's on that building at 2025 Penfield Road, Todd Baxter? Say it. So, you do not know what constitutes a criminal act, what I no longer own. This was on my refrigerator. It says Drudge Jr. This is an Associated Press story from 2000. Because I started a website in Albany. I'll leave out those details. And the Associated Press came to my residence in Gilderland, New York, where I owned a home. They did 1,000 words on me. This was in about 20 newspapers in New York. This is the original copy that was on my wall. That's me, Associated Press. I no longer own that. That's the original copy because of my eviction. Because everything I own has been thrown away. All my things were, I was locked out of my residence by Giuseppe Spano and Anthony Spano, my psychopath former landlords. All my things were taken to a storage locker. My sister, Barbara, was paying for it, and then she refused to pay for it. My relationship with her has been destroyed, and everything I own is gone. And I'm evicted without a court order. Isn't that right, Giuseppe Spano and Anthony Spano? These two father-son psychopaths think since I don't have a lease, they can just lock the doors and lock me out and take everything I own to a storage locker. I lived in Albany, New York for 5 years without a lease. I lived in Washington, D.C. for 5 years without a lease. What I didn't have is a psychopath landlord in the city. In the state of New York, as far as my research, Targeted Tenant Defense Project, tenants have almost the same protections as those with a lease. If you have a lease, you have protections. If you don't have a lease, you have protections. It's different. But I'm still protected from a psychopath landlord. And when I write the criminal complaint in detail and send this YouTube to you about Giuseppe Spano and Antonino Spano locking me out where I slept in Harris Whalen Park for 3 weeks, you will not arrest Giuseppe Spano and Antonino Spano, Sheriff Todd Baxter, and you District Attorney Sandra won't prosecute Giuseppe Spano and Antonino Spano because you both don't know what constitutes a criminal act. So, United Parcel Service, every freedom of information, you got it, you signed for it. So, September 29th. Freedom of Information Law. The internal disciplinary records or documentation of employees of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, that Sheriff Todd K. Baxter has reprimanded, terminated, disciplined employment at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office. What's the disciplinary process? In the United States Army, there's a uniform code of military justice with the Article 15, the most common punishment. There's the courts martial, which I used to sit in on as the recorder, and I've seen it up close and how it works. How do you discipline your employees? Is your answer, Todd Baxter, you'll refuse to answer? Or is your answer you don't have any disciplinary process? What's the answer? Freedom of Information Law. The internal disciplinary records or documentation for employees at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, that District Attorney Sandra Doorley has disciplined, reprimanded, and terminated employment at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office. Should you discipline, reprimand, and terminate an assistant district attorney who doesn't talk in court as a citizen and is delivered to jail? The answer is yes. And the answer from you, Sandra Doorley, is indifference and silence. It doesn't matter. I'm going to get to my prosecutors of silence I refuse to identify. What's the disciplinary process at the district attorney's office? I believe you don't have a disciplinary process at the sheriff's office or the district attorney's office. The names and salaries of every public employee at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, it's not to understand. The names and salaries of every public employee at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office, District Attorney Sandra Doorley. What's not to understand? These next two, I hope, will enrage the citizens of Monroe County. When I was a public employee in Washington, D.C., I worked for Congressman Morrison of Texas, Senator Olympia Snow of Maine, and Albany for Senate Majority Leader Ralph Marino and Governor George Pataki in the Capitol. There was no overtime. You worked your salary, and that was it. That's not the case for at least the sheriff's office. I do not know for the district attorney's office. I'm absolutely convinced that when an employee works the 41st hour, there is overtime. How do you do that? Again, there's no accountability from you. And what you're thinking is you will refuse if you're watching, and I will contact Controller Thomas P. DiNapoli, and I will tell Controller Thomas P. DiNapoli that I've sent this FOIL over and over and over to you at the district attorney's office, sheriff's office, because I believe you're fleecing taxpayers because you're corrupt. As corrupt as you two are, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter and District Attorney Sandra Doorley, there is greed of the heart. And I believe that your Monroe County Sheriff Office employees, if they know that they can exist in overtime, will just simply drive their vehicles around, accumulating hours. Where they're driving their vehicles or they're at some place in Monroe County, sitting in their vehicle and they're doing nothing and they're earning money. And they're earning time and a half, if it's called time and a half. There are different ways to do overtime. How's that done? And you know how that's done, and you know what the answer is, and I'm demanding it using the Freedom of Information law, and your answer is I should be arrested. At the district attorney's office, is there overtime, Sandra Doorley? What do your suits do? There is real crime and violence that I read about, and you have assistant district attorneys, pardon me, who are motivated by morality and decency. Not every single one is corrupt there. Just because you work at the district attorney's office doesn't make you corrupt. Because I've seen some of these trials and how much the assistant district attorneys care about crime victims and the families of the victims. Well, a murder trial, especially the preparation for it, and then when it begins, it's not to stay in a 40-hour work week for your assistant district attorney. So when that 41st hour arrives, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, for your employees, how are your employees paid? And you refuse to answer. Total cost of overtime, time and a half, or how pay beyond a base salary is calculated at the Monmouth County District Attorney's Office of Sandra Doorley. Do you exist, you pathetic diva, in money beyond your $203,000 salary? Please be paid overtime, Sandra Doorley. I'm going to write a separate file. I'm going to be on here just about overtime for you and Todd Baxter only. Do you, Todd Baxter, earn overtime beyond your $132,000 salary? What's the answer? I hope the answer is yes. And you will refuse to answer. You will refuse to answer yes or no. If in fact, you, Todd Baxter, and you, Sandra Doorley, earn overtime. And that's corruption. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 is arguably the most important legislation ever passed by the United States Senate and the United States House of Representatives. And it is the legislation that regulates sexual harassment in the United States of America. I've said repeatedly on YouTube, I've told you what it is. I'm not going to do that again because I don't have so much time. Sexual harassment. Have you used taxpayer dollars to settle these lawsuits? I'm not talking about the definition of sexual harassment, which I've talked about repeatedly. I'm talking about, has there been a settlement? That's what I'm demanding to know. Have you expended taxpayer dollars for what's commonly called sexual harassment lawsuits, or as I call them in this document, employment-related discrimination lawsuits? What's the answer? Is there an expenditure at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office by Sheriff Todd Baxter because you settled a sexual harassment lawsuit? Is there an expenditure at the Monroe County District Attorney's Office because you, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, settled a sexual harassment lawsuit? What's the answer, Todd Baxter and Sandra Doorley? Cost of taxpayers of Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter expending taxpayer dollars to settle employment-related discrimination lawsuits failed to comply with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Cost of taxpayers of Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Doorley expending taxpayer dollars to settle employment-related discrimination lawsuits failed to comply with Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. I showed you the camera. Called a surveillance device, and what you're thinking, like Michael Radler or Kathleen Miller, or $101,000 William Dale or Scott Alberti, is how you can humiliate me and embarrass me when I use this phrase. So I'm going to use this phrase. And then you can figure out how you can humiliate and embarrass me. Surveillance device that you bought and fixed at 2025 Penfield Road. What's life going to be like for you, Todd Baxter, if in fact you have to comply with this and you did buy it, and it's not just private technology? When you have to say words to the effect, I expended $200 to put this contraption on this building called a surveillance device to concoct a crime for Christopher Chichester and walk through a parking lot 4,000 times. Lunatic fringe. Freedom of Information law. Cost of the surveillance device purchased with taxpayer dollars by Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter and fixed to a building at 2025 Penfield Road to monitor Christopher Chichester, 26 Sandra Drive, walks through the parking lot next to the building. I have this confrontation with this neighbor when he's screaming at me when he knows that people walk through this parking lot every day. And this Elliot Roth that works at this building says to me, quote, "You're going to be arrested." I've never seen a human being exist like this Elliot Roth in his happiness and saying to me, quote, "You're going to be arrested." He doesn't know that I can conclude that the camera's on the building and I am going to be arrested. All I'm doing is walk through a parking lot. And I walked into Gold's Gym that day in Fairport. And I thought about Elliot Roth saying to me, "You're going to be arrested," when I was at Gold's Gym. I was trying to figure it out. Well, now I have figured it out. You should put that camera on that building. Probably switch it with Janet with Todd Baxter. I go to, I think, your official website or Facebook, and there are your Monroe County Sheriff Office employees. underwater in a pool. 10 in their wetsuits. Do you ever dive team for Lake Ontario and other bodies of water? I don't know, but they're underwater in a pool. This is a staged photograph where your employees put on their wetsuits, went to a pool somewhere, I'll guess in Monroe County, and did they hire a photographer? This has to be staged and posed. I've shown this photograph. I'm going to show the photograph, which I don't have now, later on in the next 7 days on YouTube about your employees. I'm going to do a separate YouTube only on this disgusting, sickening photograph of 10 employees underwater in a pool. Did you expend taxpayer dollars for it, Todd Baxter? And why are you promoting it? Why do you want the people of Monroe County to know that your employees are in wetsuits in a pool? Because you're the lunatic fringe. That's why. I mean, it's Animal House at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office when you got 10 public employees underwater in a pool, Todd Baxter. For your information law. Cost of taxpayers for photography session approved by Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter to photograph 10 public Monroe County Sheriff's Office employees underwater in a pool. In Albany, there's the state capitol in concourse that was built under Governor Nelson A. Rockefeller. And the concourse is about a mile long. And what I would see frequently in the concourse are conferences where public employees from all over New York State would come and use the concourse and the big rooms on it for conferences. And I would think, what's going on here? You should be at your job. Do you send your employees to Albany for conferences, Sheriff Todd Baxter, District Attorney Sandra Doorley? Do you send your employees to Washington, D.C. for conferences, District Attorney Sandra Doorley and Sheriff Todd Baxter? You certainly send your employees, Sheriff Todd Baxter, out of state because Ryan Fisher was in Atlanta, Georgia. What was Ryan Fisher doing in Atlanta, Georgia? And was Ryan Fisher in Atlanta, Georgia for a conference? Because he's there with his dog and he's outside Mercedes-Benz Stadium. What's the answer? And your answer is total silence, refuse to answer because you're not accountable to anyone, and this is corruption. I do not use language without thinking about it, and I strive to use language with precision. And when I say that you, Todd K. Baxter, are corrupt, this is a reason among the 500 reasons why you're corrupt. Your employee, Ryan Fisher, is in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm demanding the cost of the hotel, the cost of the plane ticket, the cost of care and feeding his dog, and you're going to refuse. Freedom of information law. Cost for a hotel and plane ticket for Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee Ryan Fisher to attend a Super Bowl in Atlanta, Georgia with his canine dog Lola on February 3rd, 2019. At your Monroe County Jail, you have employees that are grossly overweight. When I say grossly, it's 40 pounds overweight. There are different degrees, of course, about how you can be overweight. 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 40 pounds. There are Monroe County Sheriff's Office employees that are so overweight that it's a total embarrassment. And you see these employees. And the reason why you don't institute physical training, Todd K. Baxter, is you want to be Mr. Popularity at the Sheriff's Office. And you know, if you have some type of equivalent to the Army PT test where you run, do push-ups and sit-ups 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, your popularity is going to decline. Because if that Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee has to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning and drive to a designated location and engage in physical activity for 30 minutes, such as push-ups, sit-ups, and a 2-mile run, your popularity is going to decline. The physical strength and health of your employees is directly related to their safety on the job. And you don't have any physical training standards whatsoever. And you, Todd K. Baxter, are directly responsible for placing the lives of your own employees at risk because they're out of shape and overweight. Where's your love for your own employees, you party-switching stooge? Tell them to get in shape and lose weight to protect and preserve their lives. Freedom of Information Law. What are the physical training standards and requirements of the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter? You have none. The double dipper is the state or federal employee that works 20 years, retires, collects a retirement paycheck, is rehired, and collects a second paycheck. This goes on in Albany. Does it go on to Monroe County Sheriff's Office? I don't know. I'm tempted to find out. Michael Rather was a Monroe County Sheriff's Office employee for 20 plus years, I believe. I do not know how long Michael Rather was employed, but he retired. And then he's rehired again. And when I got the payroll, the first name, as I'm going through page after page, I'm looking for Michael Rather. So I wanted to see if he was a double dipper. And then I was going to immediately contact the controller about him being a double dipper, which is legal. It's unethical. Just because something is illegal doesn't mean that it's moral and right and good and true. You don't know anything about those things, Todd Baxter. Michael Rather with $0 is such a joke and embarrassment. You had to make the decision to bring him back. Then you had to make the decision to pay him no money because you know it's a political liability. So, what are the facts and circumstances of Michael Radler's employment? Freedom of Information Law. The day and year Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter rehired Michael Radler after his 20-plus year career with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office ended. The name in charge of every inmate at Monroe County Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, Monroe County Jail from January 2018, September 29, 2022. Separate your violent inmates from your non-violent inmates. I'm walking around in your jail with a 6'8", 300-plus pound man who's charged with murder because I saw his picture in the Democratic Chronicle when I was released the first time from Monroe County Jail. I will contact the New York State Commission on Correction in Albany and explain in detail my experience at your jail and what happened to me at your jail, including when I'm violently attacked, which I've also said again on YouTube, but I'm going to have more details about it when I contact you in writing and when I contact the Commission on Correction. Sheriff Todd K. Baxter of Monroe County, create a separate area at Monroe County Jail for inmates that are charged with nonviolent crimes. I understand that there is a gray area about what is nonviolent, what is violent, but you can make that decision. The murderers and the rapists absolutely have to be separated from somebody's in there with a nonviolent crime. Perhaps you got some insurance scammer in there, some American Greed type of criminal. You've seen that show. I'm astounded at the white collar crime I've watched on that show because I love that show. I don't even know if it's still on anymore, but I used to watch it for years. And these are white collar criminals on this American Greed. Do you have white collar criminals that are nonviolent at Monroe County Jail? And are they housed right next to the murderers and rapists? I believe the answer is yes, because you do not segregate, to use the correct word, the violent inmates from the nonviolent inmates. And the danger of that is that the violent inmate is the predator inmate, and the violent inmate will seek out the nonviolent inmate to victimize the nonviolent inmate. I've seen that too. Because what else is there to do in jail? It's engage in violent criminals will engage in violence, and they'll certainly pick those individuals they think are weak. Sheriff Todd Baxter, I'm going to say this again for you. Separate the nonviolent inmates from the violent inmates for their own safety and to prevent the public relations nightmare from falling down upon your skinhead. These next three, there should be three names, Sandra Doorley. My prosecutors of silence. I believe I have three prosecutors of silence. I know I have three prosecutors of silence. Sandra Doorley. What are the names of my prosecutors of silence? Sandra Doorley, identify my prosecutors of silence. What I'm going to hear from you, you party-switching diva from hell, is nothing. Documentation for the case of Christopher Child for John P. Lomenzo Jr. Pemberton Town Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? Documentation for the case of Christopher Child for Paul C. Metzer in Pemberton Town Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? Documentation for the case of Christopher Child for Alex Renzi in New York State Supreme Court. What is the name of the prosecutor, Sandra Doorley? The last time I was in this New York State Supreme Court before Alex Renzi, when I go into court, I don't follow the usual protocol of respect to court. I said to him, "Where's the jury?" And he looked at me with hatred. You're forcing me into this star chamber of New York State Supreme Court before former employee of the District Attorney's Office, Alex Renzi, to punish me when you know a prosecutor doesn't talk, when you know there's no jury. Who are my prosecutors for my appearances assigned to Alex Renzi? What are their names? I believe these are the multiple prosecutors I have. Do I have multiple prosecutors just for Alex Renzi? Do I have just one prosecutor for John P. Lomenzo Jr.? Do I have just one prosecutor for Paul C. Metzler? What are the names of my prosecutors, District Attorney Sandra Doorley, and you refuse to answer and disclose the names? You received registered mail return receipt. This is called Defiance. I sent this from a Gmail account I created. This Gmail I created, I will tell you what the Gmail is so you know it's me. The Gmail I created is c2621020@gmail.com. I'll say that again. The Gmail I created to send this to you is c2621020@gmail.com. The subject is Defiance, Todd K. Baxter, Sandra Doorley, Alex Renzi, Paul C. Metzer, and J.T. Olin Jr. This is why I use Gmail, because there's no limit on the senders. So you know what I'm talking about. I'm only trying to reach certain people. If I can reach 50 people or 100 people at the District Attorney's Sheriff's Office, then I will. It says here, September 27, 22. This Sandra Doorley is Todd Baxter. This was in this email. Every single one of these employees see. Now, the name's on here from the sheriff's office and district attorney's office. Michael Radler's on here. Kathleen Miller's on here. I believe her name is Ann Chase is on here. She's the district attorney's office. Elizabeth Buckley is on here. And Perry Duckles is on here, who is, I believe, truly the district attorney of Monroe County because of the radical decline of Sandra Doorley's house. So Perry Duckles, right here. You receive this right here. So Perry Duckles, I'm going to send this to you when I contact you directly. I've already done that. I'm going to send you registered mail return receipt only, Perry Duckles. Well, I'm talking to you with the Freedom of Information Law, not Sandra Doorley. This says, mail the information I demand, the 18 attached Freedom of Information Law documents dated September 27, 22, to the address in the following. You will receive this documentation via certified mail return receipt today. Capiche? Resign. It's called Defiance. And then I'm on TikTok with this, which is an app I've been using. TikTok app is attached to this. My name is Christopher Chichester. I've never committed a crime. There is guilty and not guilty in the criminal justice system. I'm neither. I'm innocent. The confirmation of my innocence is that a prosecutor's never talked in court. I don't give a damn if you agree with me or not. I'm telling you, a prosecutor's never talked in court. If a prosecutor's never talked in court, that establishes innocence for anyone. So, this is the price of violence. Right there, it's $61.39. I leave my residence at 26 Sanders Farm Drive, where I used to live. I walk in front of the pharmacy and to Wegmans. 5 Monroe County Sheriff Office vehicles converge on me. Monroe County Sheriff Office employee ran at me, knocked me to the ground. My head slammed against the concrete. The Monroe County Sheriff Office employee stands above me. He says, "Don't move, Chris. This is the 1984 of your office, Todd Baxter." I was just violently attacked. My head slammed down upon the concrete. I can't move. And then your employee's telling me, "Don't move, I'm surrounded." When I was released from Monroe County Jail, I had $61.39 in my pocket. The price of violence. I will never cash this check. Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, what's the name of your employee that exited his vehicle, ran at me, lowered his shoulder, knocked me to the ground, my head slammed against the concrete pavement, and you will refuse to identify this employee that works for you because you, Sheriff Todd K. Baxter, blew off silence? My name is Christopher Chichester. I have never committed a crime.